Welcome back. This will be the last clip or last part of this first class on 13th October 2015. So let me go ahead and get started with the second slide here. And the main purpose of this presentation or this segment is to show you how we'd like to have you prepare your final presentation of your project. Cover the format and content. And actually, I'm also going to show you a sample presentation that one of my other student teams has used. So with that, let me go ahead and get started. Slide 3, the learning objectives of this class, this part, is to learn how to make a standardized presentation. Learn the benefits of being concise, because it's important that you don't write a long, description of your project, something that is several pages that the executives aren't going to want to read. So it's important to be concise and kind of provide an executive summary level presentation rather than a lot of detail. Certainly you can have a lot of backup, a lot of Excels and other analysis you've done as backup, but you certainly want to be concise in your final presentation. Also, learn the benefits of illustrations, graph, pictures, etc. to tell the story. So you want to tell the story of this project and kind of the background information, the company information, and so on. But using a lot of graphics and pictures is very important. So with that, let me go ahead to slide 4. And really, I'm looking for just a short summary of your presentation. Maybe I've outlined 6 slides here. It could be 8 slides depending on the amount of detail you want to get into, but I'll go through each of these first. The title slide, the current situation, the problem analysis, what the future state, what your proposed image is for the ideal state, the implementation plan, and how they will follow up in the closing. So again, 6, 7, 8 slides. It doesn't have to be exactly 6, but as you see when I show you the sample, some of these slides be a combination of items on the same slide. So the title slide, I'd like to have you introduce your team, the name of the project, the name of the company, name of the stakeholders, who are your main contacts of the company. As I said, introduce your team and the various roles, and just a short description of the project. So this kind of kicks you off on giving you the title of the project and title of your presentation. The second slide is very important. Again, this may be more than one slide depending on the amount of detail you find. But the important thing, as I outlined in the methodology, is to find something about the company that you're dealing with. So here you want a kind of an overview of the company history and background. What is the business they're in? Again, use pictures, maybe pictures of their products or their business. You can probably get from their website and other materials you find on the web. Show some history of the business. Hopefully you can gather some of the sales history, customer growth, or any other statistics that may pertain to the project. Maybe a map of where they're located, if they're only in India or if they're world company. Kind of show top down, here's the big picture of the business, and then narrow it down to maybe the division or the product or the plant that you're going to be dealing with. So that kind of gives you the big picture narrowed down to, now we're going to talk about your specific area of interest. Here we want to describe what is the brief description of the problem. Again, you may want to include a value stream map, data, charts, pictures to illustrate or quantify the problem. So again, more than just a subjective description of the problem, using data points or value stream map to show the problem, and then indicate the impact on the business. Or is the business being hurt? The sales being hurt because of defects, or the productivity and the cost is increasing because of this inefficiency. So this kind of gives you the current situation. Next is slide 3. Is now you want to take the problem. In the previous slide you kind of illustrate what the problem is, but now you want to break it down further, maybe using some additional graphs or charts. Pareto analysis is always good if you're going to ranking the reasons for the problem. And this way you kind of, if you're using a map or a Vascular map, is kind of pinpoint where is the problem happening along the flow. Is it just in receiving? Is it in assembly? Is it at shipping, and so on? And then I think I mentioned in the methodology, you may not want to tackle every problem to solve, but here you would prioritize the problems that need to be solved, and then drill down on one or two of the problems in more detail. Show the root cause of these couple of problems you're going to work on, and indicate what are the reasons you think that the business is having this problem. Again, this is fact-based. Let's just don't use assumptions, but use an analysis and good scientific problem-solving techniques to demonstrate your understanding of the reasons for these problems. Slide 4 is now you want to set up what is the ideal future state. Again, if you use value stream map as a base, you may want to draw a new image of how it would look after you solve these problems. Also, it could be a numerical goal. It could be a percentage improvement, reduction in cost, percentage reduction in defects, or so on. So it's important that you show what the target is in the future. Now, this target may not be able to be achieved in the short run, but it could be a future target that the company can shoot for. Also, it may be a new software tool that you're going to propose would be the target of a better inventory management system or ordering system. Next is, once you have the target, where you want to go is how are you going to get there? What are the countermeasures that you've considered for this problem? And it's good to show you work here that you may have considered 2 or 3 countermeasures, but you've selected one that you're going to recommend implement. For example, if your project was to evaluate different software solutions for a solution, you could show that you've evaluated 3 vendors' software products and showing some kind of a criteria how you've recommended the one that you selected. So this would be where you'd want to demonstrate that. Now, if you've actually have a tool that you've developed, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, a model you've developed to help them do a particular problem or solve a problem, this is where you would not include this in the presentation, but you could have a separate file, an Excel file, something that you could actually do a demo in, either at the end of the demonstration, or you could cut out here and actually show the software tool you've developed and run a short demo. Typically, you'd only want to keep this 4 or 5 minutes so you don't lengthen your presentation. Next, slide 5 is the implementation and follow-up. Again, you'd want to identify what are the tasks required to fully implement both your short-term and long-term plans. Now, again, some of the things you can do within this class may be limited, but you can recommend to the company that they do this and this and this. So there may be 3 or 4 items that they do after you finish the class. So you probably won't be able to fully implement everything, or maybe even not one thing, but you could identify what the follow-on tasks are required and what are the major milestones that they should hit along the way. Also, this is where you would identify what kind of metrics they can use to monitor and evaluate the results. So again, we want to make sure that whatever you're recommending is going to be beneficial. So if they don't have a way to measure progress, they will not know whether or not your recommendations are succeeding. So it's important to come up with some measurements and some evaluation that they can use to monitor the results. And then you're ready for closing. So this is where you thank the audience and you thank the business executives, stakeholders, and you ask for questions and feedback. So my expectation is that you would present this presentation as a draft, maybe to your stakeholders before you make the final report to the class. So during this draft presentation, you would get additional feedback from the stakeholders, make refinements in your presentation before you finalize it for your final class presentation. Okay, so now this is where I've included a sample presentation, and I won't go over this in a lot of detail because I'm not trying to educate you on the actual project, but I want to illustrate how the presentation was put together effectively using pictures and graphs and flowcharts. So this is a project that was done here in the United States for a company called Woven Metal Products. It's in Houston, Texas, and this is the title page for the project group 5. So basically they've named the company. They got a short project description here. They've used some nice pictures to kind of grab. I've wiped out the project team names, but in the red area in the bottom they actually showed the name of the project team, so you could list your team members here on the title page. The next page is more of the grasp the situation. This is where they've included not only the grasp the situation, what is the history of the company, what kind of products they're working on and selling, and then kind of breaking down. In this case, they were doing a vendor analysis to determine whether the vendors could be used to outsource some of their work. Currently, this company is doing almost everything in-house, but one of their challenges was that they expected that their vendors had a lot more capability and that they actually could outsource some of the work. So this is where they were trying to understand what the vendors were and also the clients. Again, using a lot of visuals here, which makes it much more informative for the reader. The next slide is where they started breaking down the problem, doing the problem analysis. Here they've got a simple flow across the green line there that shows the different stages of manufacturing and the development of this company. And I noticed here in the I circled in red here where they've got actually a vendor catalog in Excel. So again, they didn't show the Excel detailed list of vendors, but they did analyze over 800 vendors, and they've broken down in this cumulative percentage here what the different vendors' activities are, percentage of business. So again, they have 810 vendors, but I think they also identified that 95% of the activities are in-house. So there's a lot of room to outsource their work to qualified vendors. So this is the interesting slide here. Again, they use a lot of pictures in flowchart to illustrate the problem. The next slide is their target image. What does the future state look like? And here I think it's an interesting slide where they've kind of showed on the left side what things could be outsourced to the vendors. And they've identified a lot of core competencies that the vendors have, but they also identified what the company needs to own, doing their own operations on the right-hand side. So, things like specialized operations, fabrications need to be done in-house as well as quality control. Many of the other things can be outsourced. So this was a very useful analysis for this business. It kind of opened up the eyes of the executives and say, wow, there's a lot of opportunities here that they can move to over time. So then the final recommendations they made was, one, come up with a vendor code. One of the things that this company hadn't done is they haven't really coded their vendors, so it was hard to organize things in a database. So they developed some kind of a combination of alphanumeric code that they could categorize their vendors in different classifications. And then the next step would be to rationalize their vendors, eliminate a lot of the marginal vendors that they only use once in a while, and to focus on, I call it 80-20 rule, that 80% of your volume is done with 20% of your vendors. So this would be the idea here. They identified success metrics here, something they can measure success, and they broke down the activities short-term and long-term. Now, in this case, they didn't put together a very detailed implementation plan, but at least they categorized what things can be done short-term and long-term. And then finally, the closing slide here is again just kind of summarizing and asking for feedback and questions. So, as you can see, this doesn't have to be a very lengthy presentation that I'm looking for in this class, but I think it's you can demonstrate in a very short amount of slides that you have effectively analyzed the situation, grasped the situation, and come up with clear recommendations that the business can use. And in this case, this business stakeholders are very enthused about this analysis, and they were planning on going ahead with this project. Okay, so that kind of wraps up this first class. We've got one final group of students that I'd like to have introduce themselves, and so please go ahead and start the introductions. I won't obviously be able to do this on this video, but when I'm doing it live, I can pause here and have you introduce yourself. That concludes this first session, 13th October session. I appreciate your attention, and I'm looking forward to, again, meeting you in person on the 24th of October at the Hero Factory. So enjoy the preparation for your Hero visit. Go ahead and ensure that you read those assignments and get prepared with your questions that you would want to learn about for this Hero Factory visit. Thank you very much, and I will see you in about 10 days. Thank you.